We are live. Welcome everybody back to High Performance Impact. I'm super excited to have you all back here with us today. And with me today, I get to talk to Dr. Rob Bell, a sports psychology coach, correct?
That sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming here, Dr. Rob. I really appreciate having you and taking some time just to share your experiences. I want to just give a little background as to how I got to know you a little bit. So folks, for those of you who are on LinkedIn, absolutely look Dr. Rob up. He's pretty cool. I came across his profile because I also love high performance as well. And when I saw Rob's profile, it was fun because the first thing I noticed on there was this thing called Puke and Rally. And when I saw that, I was like, well, now that sounds kind of interesting. What's Puke and Rally all about? This guy's got a good story, so I need to know who this person is. And so I started talking to Rob, and then we hopped on a phone call, and then just kind of went from there. And then I started reading his book, which has been an absolute delight. So we're going to get to hear a little bit about that, but I want to welcome you, Rob.
Thank you so much, Megan. I appreciate that intro. You bet.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. So without further ado, I want to kind of dive in. And what I would love for people to hear is a bit more about your story, Rob, a little bit more about you, what you do. And then we'll kind of dive a little bit more into your story about how Puke and Rally came about, because as I've been reading the book, there's been some really good lessons. But first off, why don't you just tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Sure. Well, again, I appreciate that. I mean, I'm a coach, so I love working with athletes. And I always say this, I say everyone's an athlete. Our office is just different. I know you and I both share that same mentality. So if it's an athlete, I think we automatically start thinking about an athlete. And that's true. I have a lot of professional athletes, collegiate athletes, high school athletes, but also business executives and coaches themselves. So I'm a firm believer that everyone needs a coach. I know I need a coach, and we just can't coach ourselves. That's the toughest thing. So I'm pretty blessed to be able to work with so many different high performers when it comes to, reaching their full potential and having success and significance in life. My journey basically started a long time ago. I knew early on in life when I would think too much that no one could ever help me out. I would just constantly be stuck inside my own head. And I always say when we're stuck inside our own head, we're behind enemy lines. And so I was getting shot at and attacked all the time, and no one could ever help me out. And that happened a long time ago, but I knew that was sort of tattooed in my mind. Hey, this is what I want to do with my life, is be able to help other people, with their hinge moments and reach their goals.
Awesome. Oh, I love that. That's awesome. See, I think that's really cool that you knew pretty quickly that that was what you wanted to do. For a lot of us, I know for me, my story was it took me kind of a while to figure out, oh, wait, hey, this coaching thing's actually pretty cool. So I love that you kind of knew early on, hey, I want to use my experiences to really get out there and make a difference. So that is cool. And certainly you have. Yeah, and also you're kind of an athlete yourself too. That's one of the things that I noticed from your story, is that it seems some of your awesome lessons have come from being an athlete. One thing I really liked from your book, Rob, you made this statement, and I'm probably, hopefully I don't slaughter it here, but what I liked that you said was that oftentimes in life we get the test a little bit later. We get to study first in the classroom and in life, kind of before we get tested, but then sports has kind of a fun way of just throwing you into the test, before you're ready, and then you get to learn the lessons after. But it seems like you've kind of learned a lot from being an athlete. Is that true?
Yeah, that's right. And that's the part, people always say this, right? Like sports is like life, and, that cliche. And I get it, right? And there are a lot of similarities to it. And I think it is a microcosm of society. But the reason why I think we love sports so much is because it's nothing like life. Like in life, there's just so much ambiguity, but in sports, there isn't. You run that time, you finish that time. There's no ambiguity. You won or you lost. And that's the part that I love about life, is when there's no ambiguity. And that's the part that I think we love about sports. So, I love competing because I mean, I'm just a firm believer. I mean, we have one life, and if we live it right, then once is enough. That was a quote from Mae West. I kind of love that one. And I just think we always got to get after it. And I'm not a good singer or dancer, so I can compete. And I like doing those races. And it's true, in any kind of sport and event where I think we're at, like we get the test first and then we get the lesson afterwards. Now, yeah, there's a lot of preparation that goes into it, but ultimately it's always we're getting the test and we're getting the lesson after it. So, I mean, we learn more from our failures and our setbacks, and just entering those races too give me fodder for my book and for my coaching, because, I've gotten 2 books just from doing competitions and Ironmans and ultra marathons. And those are the parts I just love.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, and I've really been enjoying reading about your experience. I mean, so I'm not going to spoil it for all of you folks. You're going to have to go out there and just read it yourselves. But I mean, the book it literally starts off, at a running start.
Yeah.
And, the experience in the very beginning is quite legendary, I'd say. I'm like, wow, like that is a good story. And so it is a fantastic way to start off.
And yeah. I can share it. I can share it for your listeners if you want.
Do you want to share it? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Like, I don't want to spoil it for
everyone. No, not at all. Not at all.
Go ahead and share it with us.
Yeah. So Puke and Rally, it's not about the setback. It's about the comeback. And this was like my first 50K race that I was going to do. It's an ultra marathon. And there were some issues with that heading in. I had a little calf problem. It was in the springtime. And so training here in Indiana, it was in the 40s. That's like the highest temperature was in the 40s. The day of the race, it was in the high 80s. And so, I mean, that's just a recipe for disaster. And, it was 32 some miles, but it's about 8,000 feet of elevation. And in Indiana, you don't travel here for the skiing. There's just not a lot of hills, and there's not a lot of hill training. And about mile 20, I was in serious dehydration mode. I was having some shutdown problems. I couldn't run. I had to walk. And when I get in those kind of situations, like some panic can kind of sit in. I was thinking, even though the race was okay up to that point, I was thinking, oh man, they're going to pull me off because I'm going to be cut, because I knew, look, I'm not in a good spot. And so I stopped by this rest station. The rest stations at ultra marathons, it's like a tailgate, just without the beer. Some of them might even have the beer, but it's a tailgate. You can have any kind of food you want. And so when I show up at mile 20 and I'm in trouble, I need something that's going to get me set, get me back to neutral. So I'm thinking in my head, right? I show up, boy, that Gatorade looks good. Let me definitely have some of that and some of that water. And how about some of that Mountain Dew? And then I'm looking at all the food and the smorgasbord, and I'm like, boy, those potato chips looks good. I got to have some salt. Well, let's add some pretzels to it. Boy, that trail mix looks pretty good, and those nuts. Well, what are we going to wash that down with? How about some Twizzlers there and some M&Ms? That looks good. I mean, I had everything, thinking that that's what's going to help me get back to normal. So take, probably like 15 minutes, and I've got 12-ish miles still to go. They're tough 12 miles. And as I go leave that aid station, I hit rock bottom at the very bottom. And in all these, right, if you go down to the bottom of a mountain, like you're going to have to climb back up. And I'm climbing back up, and then I just know I got to throw up. And, not to gross anybody out, but the reality is look, we've all thrown up, we've all puked. And when everything came up and I felt better, automatically, right? For about 2 minutes. And then everything started feeling awful again. So I got to actually see my family at mile 24. It took me a while just to get to that point. And this is what kind of bad situation I'm in. And I've trained for it, not as good as I should have, but we're at the base of this last little climb that I have to do up to another aid station. And my kids are down there at the bottom. They went down there because daddy's not here, like something's a matter. I wasn't hitting those times. And we're climbing up that last hill. And this is how bad I was in a situation. I couldn't even keep up with them. Like I couldn't even walk with them. Like I had to keep stopping every 50 yards. And then we finally get up to the very top, and then everything just came up, everything. And now I'm in, I tried like drinking some water, and everything that went down was now coming up. So it was really like projectile. And as this was going on, the sky opened up and it started dumping rain. And so if you can picture this, We kind of all rushed to the car. I'm opening up the back seat of the car, and I don't mean like, I mean, this is a torrential downpour where if like you open it, you're soaked like in 10 seconds, completely soaked. So I'm opening the back door, throwing up, closing the door, looking at my kids in the eyes, and they're just bawling, crying, because they have no idea like what's happening, why is daddy so messed up. And my wife gets in the car and she says, I told him that you're dropping. And I really had no recourse at that point. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't really say anything. And so we leave, and as we're going back to the cabin that we rented for that weekend, I remember my son telling my wife, you mean daddy had to quit? And because in our family, like one of the staples that we live by is that you just don't give up no matter what. Because I'm a firm believer that, look, if you don't give up, that you will be successful. And I remember hearing that voice, and we kind of got back to the cabin. I passed out, I stopped throwing up, have the dry heaves and everything, and kind of wake up after a nap after a little bit and try eating something that stays down, have a little something to drink that stays down. And then it hits me, that my son's voice was clicking back in my head. You mean daddy had to quit? And I started thinking in my head, I was like, boy, I didn't come here to paint. We came here to finish. And they're all taking a nap. I wake them up and I said, look, we're going back. We're going to finish. This is 2 hours after I dropped. I kind of got myself together. And then I went, my wife dropped me off at that point. I checked back in and I finished the race. And I guarantee I have the record for like the slowest time because of that respite that I took. I mean, I had my own pace. I was last, but I was last of the finishers, and I still finished. And that's where the book came about, right? Puke and Rally is we're all going to puke, but what does it take to rally? And what are the skills and the mental skills and the toughness that we need in order to rally, in order to come back? And I think there's a lot of factors that go into it, but that's basically what started it. And I'm a big firm believer in this, that it really isn't about the setbacks that we're going to have in life. It's not about the failures. It's about how we respond to it and can we come back? And that's the part that's so amazing is, look, no matter how bad things are in our life, no matter how bleak a situation looks, it only takes one. It only takes that one opportunity, that one person, that one decision that we make that turns everything around for us. We just don't know when that's coming. But that was the premise of the book, and that's how it got started.
Love it. Oh, that is such an epic story. And what's cool, I mean, like, I don't know, I think it kind of made it cool that I'd already talked to you beforehand, and I didn't really know that had been your experience. And so it was really cool to get to read that and to be like, whoa, this is Dr. Rob, like, this is, who I get to interview. And so I was really excited to, be able to share this experience, like have this on here. And so I'm like, wow, like, I don't know, like, I think that's really neat that you got back up and finished, literally puking. Nothing glamorous about that, but I just love that you share that experience because I think it's in the following chapter that you talk about it where, in life, oftentimes we, like to minimize, okay, hey, here's some tips to be successful, here's what you're going to do. And it's like, well, here's the deal. You're going to puke, like there's going to be crazy stuff that happens, there's going to be all those setbacks, but indeed it is about, puking, getting it out, but keep going. I love that message. Just keep going. Do not quit. And that is impressive.
And that's, if there's one mental skill I'm good at, it's not letting go of mistakes. It's not really even confidence, but it's the focus and it's being able to know in my heart of hearts that I'm not going to quit. Yeah. I'm not going to quit. And that's what I believe. If we just have that skill, commitment, it means, staying true to what we said we were going to do long after the moment in which we said it has worn off. And I love that one. That one's like from Inky Johnson. I thought that was such a righteous statement because it's true, right? We all start out with good intentions. We all start out with, hey, these goals and everything that we want. The problem is when bad stuff happens, and it's going to happen, how do we respond to that stuff? And that's the part that I always found to be amazing. It's like when we start to fail, when we start to have the setbacks, it's not just that setback. Everything in life that I think where we failed at before and where we messed up all comes flooding back in and starts reminding us about our past failures and setbacks. And it's not just this one error that we make, it's all those past mistakes. If we can just overcome that one mistake that we're going to make in our current situation, that's where I believe that we're going to be able to come back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, how much more powerful is it when you just commit and say, hey, I'm going to finish this. Yes, all kinds of stuff is going to keep coming in. There's always going to be interference. There's always going to be a reason to quit. But if you can just commit to, saying, hey, I commit to finishing no matter what. It doesn't matter if, you're the first finisher or the last finisher. I love that you were willing to share that experience because, sometimes I think it's so easy to get discouraged by the failures that we come across and to say, well, it wasn't meant to be. There must be some reason why I couldn't do this. It just wasn't meant to be or something, or I'm not good enough. But that's not the point. The point is, can you finish? And you did. And that's, I think a lesson for all of us is to just keep getting up and finishing. So, yeah.
Even in my Ironmans and my other ultras, I've still been puking in those, but we just got to rally. I think the toughest ones are just those emotional puke sessions that we're going to have. The ones where we're told where we're not good enough, where we get rejected, and we just don't see the progress that we're making. Those I even think are more difficult.
Right. No, I think you're absolutely right, Rob. And I think that that's a really nice, kind of nice segue into the kind of the mindset piece, because I like how you pointed out that with sports, there's no, there's not really any BS, like there's no mystery really. Like there's, it's just, there's no ambiguity is how you said it. And so it's really easy to see, okay, puke, rally, get up, keep going. It doesn't matter, just do it. In life, yeah, it is different, isn't it? We oftentimes, it can be maybe someone else telling us, hey, you stay anchored or whatever, like whatever else comes up, or even worse, it might be the negative voices that we, in our head, us telling, believing that we can't do it, maybe us saying, hey, yeah, I should quit. I really, yeah. So when those emotional setbacks come up, I think those can be really difficult to maybe identify, because it's kind of part of us sometimes. I think it kind of starts to meld in with your, with your thinking. And so sometimes it's hard to weed those things out and to realize, oh, wait, this is actually what I should be puking out so that I can rally. And actually, I would be curious, Rob, like, what have you found to kind of help with the kind of the emotional puking? Like, have you found things that have helped you to kind of get rid of those emotional things that need to come out?
I think there's a lot of hacks that we can do. I think there's a lot of good tips that people have in terms of, being able to let go of mistakes, get back in the moment. What we have to do is we really got to pay attention to the story that we're telling ourselves, because like you said, it's part of us. And Robert Downey Jr., when he was going through all his troubles, all his drug addictions, all his issues that he had, he ended up what he was told by Mel Gibson, the only person that would take him in at this time, is he said, it's about hugging the cactus. Oh man, that was good, right? It was like, yeah, hugging the cactus. Like, we've got to come to terms with the parts that we do not like about ourselves, but not denying that it's not there, but being able to recognize it. And what's the story that we're telling ourselves? Because a lot of times, if we can break it down, where is that voice coming from? See, what I believe is that we talk about overcoming the negativity that's happened in our life, the setbacks that are happening in our life. What I really believe, though, is that we all need to be told, you're not good enough, you can't do it, that's a bad idea. Everybody who's been successful has had that. So why was that? Because what happened is that becomes like a fish or cut bait moment. You either are going to agree with that voice one way or another saying, yeah, you're right, I'm not good enough. Or you're going to contradict that statement, and you've got to agree with the story that you're telling yourself that, no, I am good enough and I will do it. A lot of people turn it into, I'll show you. It's very powerful. But I think it's more about proving ourselves right in the voice that we want to be right. But I think it's a prerequisite for being great. Because if you don't have that adversity that you're facing, and that's the thing, we might hear it from our teacher, our coach, our coworker, our spouse, people that are close to us that are rooting for us, still telling us that, no, that's a bad idea, you can't do it.
Yeah.
But we need that. That's what we actually need, because that becomes one of those moments where we can't be on the fence, and we're either going to agree with that voice or we're going to agree with ourselves. And that's the part where the story that we tell ourselves is important.
Absolutely. That is so true. I think that's fantastic. So I've loved hearing about your book, and I'd actually like to hear just a little bit more and kind of share with everyone. So the work that you do with your clients then, because obviously you write some really good books that are really helpful. So could you tell us just a little bit more about the work that you do then with your clients?
Yeah. So working with, again, everyone's an athlete. Our office is just different. So working
Yeah.
there, it's about success. It's about those hinge moments. I want everyone to have those moments. But like with anything, I mean, they're all just moments. And what I do, I think, with my
Yeah.
athletes is
Hmm.
help them achieve that significance. And the significance piece is what's that lasting legacy that we're going to do? How are we going to help those people that are close to us? How do we create a better us that's going to be around us? Because the fact is a better us is what makes a better you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and a better you is what makes a better us. And so, I mean, there's a lot of turn by turn directions, but it's about meeting the athletes about where they are and having that vision about where we want to go, and then how do we get there.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I love that work. And I have to apologize. My cat's being a little crazy in the background. So some of that crazy noise, I apologize, folks. My cat's just going a little crazy. Anyway, she's fine. But I think that's really cool. And I kind of like how you're saying, yeah, hey, we're all athletes, just different office. I kind of think that's a fun way of putting it, because we do love sports. That's a fun way to kind of look at the way that we do things. And that sometimes I think is just kind of a helpful way of looking at the things that we go through, just because in sports, it is a lot more clear cut. And so I like the way that you work with people and going through those moments. It's not that you're a complete, washout or something, but you're going through a moment. And so it's helping people work through those moments. So I think that's really cool that you do that. Um, I'm kind of curious then. So what do you kind of have in mind then? I guess kind of how do you envision then moving forward with your work? Like kind of where do you want to go with it all?
I think impacting as many people as we can in terms of being able to capture their hinge moments.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of goals that definitely be set. I mean, I'm on a major winner on the PJ Tour. I
Yeah.
mean, they definitely have these speaking engagements, these coaches that we have,
Mm-hmm.
but especially in
Yeah.
the Indianapolis area, I've got some great people that work for me, and I want them to be able to help, all the younger athletes, those that are growing up with those mental skills that they need in order to be successful more now than ever because of the adversity that we're all facing, and it's a really difficult time. And I always say we're training our
Mm-hmm.
brain or we're treating our brain, and what happens is we just become a whole treat mentality. We got to train the brain. We got to figure out, hey, what it is, what are the skills that we need in order to stay positive, in order to keep progressing, in order to get better. Because I think we turn into victim mentality too much, and it's destructive. And so where we want to go is being able to impact as many people and helping them with their hinge moments. That's our whole key.
Absolutely. Now, kind of in closing, then, I mean, honestly, you have given us so many wonderful ideas, and I think a lot of wonderful things for people to kind of chew on and take with them. But I guess, what are some of your top parting thoughts then that you would like people to know? Like, I guess, what are those thoughts then that people need to have? I guess I know there's a lot of them, but maybe I don't know, maybe some of your top thoughts that people could use right now, because for better or for worse, I think we're all going to look back on this time. One of my mentors, a really great person said, we're going to look back on this time and look at this, particular period, with like all the stuff going on with COVID, with riots and all kinds of things going on, and either see it as a time when we chose to, see problems, or when we chose to use it as a time to really move forward. And so with what you're saying, then I guess, what are the thoughts that can really help us use this as a time to rally?
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, there's so many that I think I could share. It's like,
Right.
where's that starting point? We talked about being able to pay attention to the story that we're telling ourselves, because the amount of thoughts that we have every day, there's a story associated with that.
Yep.
And we project too much in the future, and we're looking too far down there, or we're looking at the past and looking for excuses why we're not going to be good enough. I think if I could share something, it would be this: you got to know what your strength is. And I don't just mean, if you can write, sing, or dance, not those kind of strengths, but what is the mental strength that you have? is it the fortitude? Is it the persistence? Is it the ability not to give up? Because then that's that one we got to exercise all the time. You got to be able to focus on your strengths and make those even better. Is it confidence? Is it belief in yourself? Is it your ability to focus? Is your ability to stay dialed in with a task at hand? Is your ability to be able to let go of mistakes? What is your strength? Is the ability to be able to see the vision that you have for yourself. And whatever strength that we have, that's what we got to tap into and put ourselves in situations that are exercising that muscle and are helping us get better. Because in one way or another, it is getting back to confidence and belief in ourselves. And we've got to be able to focus on the stuff that we're good at. And I think too often we just kind of forget. So I think it's always a great starting place is, hey, what are my strengths? And or what is my strength? Maybe it's creativity. And how am I exercising that and how am I using that?
Like that. I think that's a wonderful starting point. So with that, then I'm not going to, I'll kind of let people discover and think more about that as well. I'm sure we could talk about things all day and pick your brain all day. So what I'm going to now ask then, so for anyone who does want to pick your brain further, obviously folks, go read Puke and Rally. Wonderful book. I absolutely recommend that book because that was a fun read. And also too, Rob, if people want to actually pick your brain some more and talk to you, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, we have a podcast as well. It's 15 minutes of mental toughness. So that's always a great one to hear what we're thinking. We just interviewed experts on mental toughness and their hinge moments. If you go to my website, it's just drrobbell.com. So DRROBBELL.com. And we got a free offer for everybody there. You get a free download for the best mental toughness quotes that will make you better. And you got a newsletter goes out every Friday as well. So those are always great ways.
Awesome. Perfect. Wonderful. Well, everybody, I hope you got some wonderful ideas from this. I certainly did. Get out there, puke out whatever it is you need to puke, and then go rally and make it happen because you can. So, Rob, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Megan.
All right. All right. We'll see y'all later. Bye.